And we are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another wellness weekend with us here at Centro Holistico. I hope everybody is doing well. This morning, I am joined by Dr. Ronnah Ong. Hi, Dr. Ronnah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the weekend. I'm actually starting my 21-day elimination diet tomorrow.
Oh,
I've been
wow. That's going to be
on
exciting.
since Friday, so I'm like, alam mo, medyo like I can feel like all what eating all this sugar has been doing to my body for the past couple of years, how it's affecting me now.
Mhm.
Um, but and I've been talking to friends about it and have been telling them, it's really hard, but you should really do it because it just changes your life. And I would have not known anything about this elimination diet if it wasn't for you guys at Central.
So, what is your strategy? Were you going to go cold turkey starting tomorrow? Did you enjoy the weekend or did you like wean off some sweets already?
I actually I before Friday I kind of went crazy with like eating what I feel that I'm gonna be starved of for like the next couple
Mm.
of days. And then I did like I've been doing like a kind of like a liquid diet, like gut reset thing for since
Oh,
Friday.
wow.
So yeah, so all that sugar is coming back and not in a good way. But like it's crazy. Like I feel so much more focused. Alam mo yun? Like
Mm.
I feel so much lighter and I feel like I have so much more energy. And I've only been like drinking smoothies and eating soup basically. So that's kind of crazy for me because in my head I'm like I need to eat all this in order to have energy, but apparently not.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about the elimination diet because it's something I also did. And the
Mm,
odd thing was I wasn't eating as much. I was eating a lot less sugar, and yet I felt more energetic. The same things, more focused.
yeah.
And yeah, I guess it's because like there's decreased elimination in your I'm sorry, there's decreased inflammation in your gut. You're able to absorb your nutrients better. You're generally eating a more nutritious diet, and so there. All of those things put together gives you good energy. And that's what we're talking about today, right?
Exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
like it's pretty amazing. Just my big aha moment this weekend is I don't really need that much to eat that much in order to function. And just eating really the right food really helps you function at a much higher level. Which yeah, brings us to our topic today, which is bioenergetics. So, Dr. Rana, this sounds like a completely alien topic to me. So, can you please explain what is bioenergetics and how does that connect to functional medicine?
Okay. So I think in the previous talks or in the last weekends, the other doctors were talking about how functional medicine works, what the whole approach is about. And one of the things this topic highlights is how we look at the body as a whole, how we zoom in at on cellular function,
Mm-hmm.
and this whole perspective, like another term to describe it would be systems biology. So we see how all of the different body systems are connected and how symptoms arise from dysfunctions of your body systems. So, if you picture the whole body, right? And you've probably heard in your biology classes before that the cell is the most basic unit of
Yeah.
the body. So, what does that mean? That means like we have a body, and our body is made up of different systems. We have our respiratory system, our gastrointestinal system, cardiovascular system. And each system is comprised of different organs, right,
Mm-hmm.
that work together to produce a function. Now, when we look at an organ is made up of tissues, and these tissues are made up of cells. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what you mean by the cell is the most basic unit. And in the cell, you can imagine a mini you, because
Yeah.
your cell, each of our cells carries our DNA, right, in the
Mm.
nucleus. And at the same time, a cell also has organs of its own. So it has organelles.
Mm.
And
Ang cute naman
yeah,
pakinggan. We have organelles.
the cute organelles. And so, um, so if you picture that, no, try to think about the other systems we talked about also in the previous weekend. So we talked
Mm.
about the gastrointestinal system. So diba,
Mhm.
whenever we eat something, it's broken down in our stomach,
Yeah.
in our stomachs, and then it's digested and then absorbed. Um, when it's absorbed, the nutrients enters the bloodstream. And
Mhm.
so now the cardiovascular system is in charge of distributing these to your tissues and your cells. So whenever
Yeah.
you eat, that's how the nutrients eventually get to your cells. And
Mm.
when they, so yeah, that's what you picture. That's how our nutrition, that's eventually where it ends up, basically.
Mm.
Um, or you could also think of when we breathe air,
Yeah.
or when we inhale, diba? We inhale oxygen. There's an exchange of gases that happens in the lungs.
Mhm.
Our red blood cells carries the oxygen to the different cells. And so the question, like what we're talking about today, is what happens once the nutrients reach the cell? Once your
Yeah.
oxygen, once whatever you eat, when it reaches the cell, what
Mhm.
happens?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's interesting what you said. No, like I remember like the talk that I had with Doc Sasa where she said that food is information, and it really
Mm-hmm.
is. Like with your explanation, yeah, it's interesting how you kind of went, yeah, through all the systems and how everything basically kind of ends up in our bloodstream, and that kind of goes around and distributes. So my question is for my kind of understanding of kind of where we're going is that we take care of our body, of course, to a certain degree. We have our different systems, and kind of depending on what system is working the hardest, that could also possibly be where you would kind of get like a system breakdown. So, for example, if I chose to eat a lot of fatty, oily food that just isn't good for me, probably my gastrointestinal would be the first thing to kind of break down because it's overused. But how does that kind of work in terms of cells? Because I think if I remember my biology class, we are constantly naman replenishing cells, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a really good point. So we'll go back to the gastrointestinal system,
Yeah.
and like you mentioned, whenever we eat a meal, diba? Everything in that meal. So when you think of your meal,
Hmm.
we usually first look at the macronutrients, which are your carbs, proteins, and fats. Whenever you digest these in your stomach, what the gastrointestinal system does is it breaks down these macronutrients into their most basic forms. So, for example, if you have fats, it's broken down into try yes into the basic form of fats. Your proteins are broken down into amino acids, carbohydrates broken down into the basic sugars, and then these things are the ones that are distributed, they're repackaged, and then they're distributed in the body. When they enter the cell, what happens is these are they enter certain biochemical processes, and
Hmm.
basically whether it's an amino acid, whether that molecule comes from proteins, fats, or sugars, it
Hmm.
ends up it can end up as ATP. So ATP is it's the it's like the currency of energy in your body, and so it whether like the point is lang whether it's from it doesn't matter what macronutrient you get it from, they all have the same endpoint in the cell.
Okay.
um, there, and the organelle, or that part of the cell that's in charge of um, transforming those macronutrients into ATP, is the mitochondria. So that's why they call it the powerhouse of the cell.
Got it. So it's really the mitochondria that really like works whatever it is we feed it into their little kind of like into the little like environment. basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens, if or when the mitochondrial function gets compromised?
Oh, good question. So before you talk about like how what happens when it gets compromised, I'll touch on the functions of the mitochondria first. So apart from it producing ATP or energy, what it also does is it generates reactive oxygen species, so or ROS in short. Now, whenever the mitochondria creates ATP, there are byproducts that are also produced. At the same time, it also consumes not only macronutrients, but there are certain minerals and nutrients, which I'll touch on later, that are required for ATP production. It
Okay.
also needs oxygen. No? So you have all of these, parang it's like a recipe. So you have all of
Yeah.
these things that you throw in order to produce ATP. Now, think of an engine also, like of a car. In order for it to run, diba, parang there's gas that's, or and there's gas that's released, diba, from the tambucho, ganyan. So
Yeah.
think of reactive oxygen species as something like that. It's like a byproduct that
Okay.
your mitochondria releases when it produces ATP. Now, reactive oxygen species, or free radicals, that's another term for it. Free radicals, what they do is they actually have benefits in the body. They can help neutralize viruses, bacteria. They're in the right amounts, they're beneficial. But at the same time, if you produce too much of them, they can be toxic. So
God.
that's yeah. So the mitochondria produces that, but again, there has to be a right amount that's produced. And another function of the mitochondria, apart from producing energy, producing these free radicals, is it's also involved in signaling. So the mitochondria also communicates with other systems. So what it does is some mitochondrial fragments actually activate our immune response. At the same time, ATP that's produced by the mitochondria doesn't just function as the currency of energy, but it also sometimes works as a neurotransmitter, which means it functions also like a brain hormone.
Got it. So I'm curious. From what I heard, it said that we can also produce excessive free radicals. What would bring that about?
Mhm. Okay, so we think about my analogy earlier of the car. No? If you have a good and healthy engine, then look at the smoke, look at the tambucho, and look at what comes out. It's not dark, diba? When the engine's old, the smoke is really dark, and you release more particles. So that's how you can imagine the ROS to be like. Sorry, what is the question again?
Like what would produce the excessive free radicals? Because we
Excessive.
need a certain amount, right? Like you said,
Yes.
kapag sumobra.
So first, it's the health of your mitochondria. So it's
Oh,
how healthy your mitochondria is. And then second also, so there are free radicals kasi generated by the body. And there are also free radicals that you get from your environment.
yeah.
So you get free radicals when you are exposed to toxins. And Dr. Carolyn covered this in her talk last time, right? Toxins that you can get in the form of food, or you can also get through your skin, things you inhale. There. So those are things that add to the load of free radicals in your body.
Got it. Got it. So from what I'm hearing, it really is the more you take care of your body, of course, the better shape your cells are going to be in, and then
Yes.
hopefully you won't get as sick as you could possibly get if you didn't take care of yourself. So yeah, so I think let's circle back to like what happens when the mitochondrial function does get compromised. Like what could possibly show up for us?
Okay. So remember those functions that I mentioned earlier. The most basic thing is it produces energy, right?
Mm.
And one of the things that happens when you have decreased levels of energy would be like quite obvious. First of all, your cells don't function the way they're supposed to, and so remember that all of our organs are formed by cells. For example, the heart,
Mhm.
around let's say around 40 to 50% of the weight of the heart is mitochondrial mass. So
Ah.
yeah. So imagine how big of an impact the health of your mitochondria has on the contractility, on the function of the heart. And
Mm-hmm.
apart from this, it's not just the heart, but it's all your other organs that depend on how well your cells function. So if you have decreased energy or you have decreased ATP, there's compromised cellular function. And then whether that's one cell communicating to another, or your gut cell digesting your food, or
Mm-hmm.
or a brain cell that's there to process information.
Mm-hmm.
Those things will manifest as well. The more common symptoms would be fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the most basic thing, you feel tired. It could be something called brain fog, the inability to think clearly or focus well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing though is in the long run, when as if you continue having these symptoms or your mitochondrial dysfunction continues to progress, um,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what can lead to the development of various diseases like cancer or autoimmune disease, early aging, cardiovascular or neurodegenerative diseases in the long run.
Ah, God. So yeah, so I think yeah, that makes sense. No, na parang if your cells aren't functioning nga naman at
Mm-mm.
100%, then that makes it susceptible for it to shut down or not work, and that would of course lead to certain, like, death, disease, etc. But it's interesting that you mentioned that it can start with something as simple as fatigue or brain fog, like you said. So those are kind of are those like the signs that like you want to look out for, in order to check if like a system is kind of compromised or if something isn't working?
Yeah, so remember, I think one of the other doctors, I think it was Dr. Sasa, who mentioned that you think of wellness as a spectrum, right?
Mhm.
Remember the diseases that come about from chronic mitochondrial dysfunction, like cancer or autoimmune disease. These are
Yeah,
things you don't develop overnight. Like you don't wake up and then suddenly you have all the symptoms. So the
exactly.
symptoms that lead to that, or the symptoms you should pay attention to, are yun, low energy. And that's why we
Mm.
ask our patients, when you wake up in the morning, how do you feel?
Mm.
Um, right? You actually feel refreshed. Or
Yeah.
throughout the day, are there times when your energy dips or when you
Mhm.
feel like you really need the nap? There's a thing he asked also. Or for example, if you're working and you feel that you aren't able to focus or function well because you're just there, your mind isn't clear enough.
Yeah.
Those are things that you can pay attention to.
Mm-mm.
And at the same time, it can be inflammation or nerve pain. So remember that all of our cells have mitochondria. So think of your muscles. For example, when you have a lot of, when you exercise and you have slow recovery, those are
Mm.
things to pay attention to.
Ah.
Or, diba? Or if you have a lot of inflammation in your body, a lot of aches and pains,
Mm-mm.
um, then inflammation, I think we talked about the immune system before. It works as a vicious cycle. So the ongoing inflammation, whatever the cause of the inflammation is,
Mhm.
can lead to mitochondrial damage, and your damaged mitochondria can also feed into the inflammation. Remember the reactive oxygen species. The more free
Yeah.
radicals you have, then the more oxidative burden there is on your body.
Is metabolism a part of that as well?
Yes, oh, definitely. Yeah. So,
Kasi yeah.
what I was describing, oh, sorry, I cut you
No,
off.
no, no, please go ahead.
Okay. No, well, what I was describing earlier about the lipids, proteins, and carbohydrates being broken down to their basic units, that's metabolism. That's what it's all
Mm.
about. So, metabolism is something that goes both ways. No, there's anabolism and there's catabolism.
Okay.
So, whenever you break down something that you eat,
Mhm.
that's called catabolism because you break
Okay.
it down into smaller pieces in order to generate energy. Anabolism is the act of using energy and basic ingredients, put them together to produce stored to produce something. So for example,
Mhm.
when you're making tissue, when you're making cells, or you're storing or you're creating fat for storage, that's anabolism because you're building something up. So your
Ah,
body catabolizes, brings something from the outside, breaks it down, and then in the body it uses it to build something up. And that's how metabolism works.
okay. Interesting. So, like, so what I'm kind of hearing from this is like, how would you know if it is like a mitochondrial, like dysfunction, basically, or if it's just signs of aging, or or is there such a thing of signs of aging? Because like, I know like 70-year-olds who have more energy than me. So I think that's something that we'd want to look into.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When you find a mitochondrial problem, it's not, you can't just say na, oh, it's solely your mitochondria that's the problem.
Mm-mm.
So you have, like, as I was explaining earlier, diba, I was retracing how oxygen ends up in your cells, how nutrient ends up in your cell. So imagine if there's something that you lack. For example, I'll describe one disease like anemia.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, I have that.
you have anemia, okay.
Please explain.
Okay. So when you have anemia, basic definition of anemia is you have low red blood cells.
Yep.
And the function kasi of your red blood cell is to carry oxygen and distribute it to the different parts of your body.
Mm-mm.
Diba I was talking about how oxygen is a basic ingredient for ATP production in the mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have decreased oxygen supply, or what happens is if you have low red blood cells, they're not able to carry enough oxygen to your tissues. You're in a state of hypoxia or low oxygen.
Mm.
And so your mitochondria is working with so little
Got it.
oxygen, diba? And
Yeah.
that stresses out the mitochondria. And
Mm-hmm.
later on, that's what happens when the mitochondria dysfunctions. There's decreased energy. So, diba, those are the symptoms of anemia. You feel
Yes.
tired easily,
Dizzy
diba, you
easily. Yeah.
dizzy, you breathe faster. Yun. So when I say it's a mitochondrial dysfunction because you lack oxygen because of the anemia. So it's all connected.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. And I
yeah,
think like my major thing was also like like I like a lot of sugar and a lot of like I love my bread and my pasta. So
yeah.
after having that talk with Doc Sasa, about gut health, like I realized that I've actually been killing off like all like my good iron, etc., because I've been consuming so much sugar.
Mhm.
So yeah, so in terms of probiotics, like medyo naghihinalo na sila. Which is why I was like, I need to get on the 21 day elimination diet. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, or if you guys are like me and you love your sweets and you love your carbs, come in for a holistic medical consult. And we can have Doc Rana or one of our other Centra doctors take a look at you. I love what Doc Sasa said. Age is just
I
a
know.
number. We cannot make it an excuse to feel tired, getting a lot of diseases, losing or decreasing memory, or looking bad/old. Tama. like, like honestly, like ever since I started my journey with Centro, I feel a lot better. Like, and I'm in my mid 30s now, but I feel a lot better in my mid 30s than I did in my 20s. You know
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
because like I think like in my 20s, I was like I believe the whole, like sleep is for the weak, need to work hard, etc. I
Mm-mm.
bought into all that.
Yeah.
And I just ended up kind of miserable. The stress triggered my thyroid, etc. Um,
Mm.
and now that I'm in my 30s and I kind of realized, okay, that's not really what matters. There are a lot of other things that matter more. Things are
Mm.
starting to make a lot more sense, and I'm starting to take care of myself a lot more. And because of that, I do feel a lot younger than I did when I was 20. So, 'di ba? Kaloka lang.
And so that's true talaga. So you really know that age is just a number. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So,
well, one of the things, oh sorry,
yeah.
I just wanted
Please.
to mention one of the things I forgot to mention about mitochondrial function is that it also helps regulate your cell growth and cell regeneration.
Mm.
So if you have problem, that's why it's connected to early aging.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, diba, if you lack energy, if your cell lacks energy to fulfill na nga its basic functions, why will it replicate or why will it grow? Diba? It will
Yeah,
focus on keeping itself alive
exactly.
rather than regenerating. So that's how it's connected to aging.
Mm-mm. And yeah, no, it's interesting what you and Doc Sasa said. And it just made me realize nga na we're also focused on parang aging forward, but from
Mm-hmm.
what I'm hearing from you with the mitochondria and how cells naturally naman replenish themselves, we can also
Mm-hmm.
like biologically kind of age backwards a little bit if we
Mm,
kind of decide to take better
yeah,
care of ourselves. Um,
definitely.
right? And I think like at least for me, like my excuse before was in terms of free radicals. It's like, oh, like I live in the city, it's polluted, marami talagang free radicals. Like wala I
Mm-hmm.
have no choice in the matters. But is that true?
Yeah. Oh, well, this is one point that I got. I remember Dr. Carolyn mentioning also that the body really tries to rebalance itself, or
Mm,
our bodies are resilient that way. So, although there's a heavy toxin load, free radicals naman in the body are neutralized by antioxidants. So, there's hope.
yeah.
So, yeah, we can aid our bodies. Like, I know it's impossible, diba, to just detach, go to the mountains. Parang that's not the answer. So,
Yeah.
as you, yung parang, okay, it's impossible to be 100% toxin free. And so one way you can support your body is to make sure that you have an antioxidant rich diet, first
Mm,
and foremost. And then, um, there, while you were talking lang and, while you were talking earlier, I just remembered that that's one of the things that drew me to functional medicine, like understanding how the body really is resilient,
mm,
how, how when you're talking about aging backwards, our bodies are really meant to, to fight for health, or parang to, as much as possible, try to rebalance itself. We just
mm.
have to give it what it needs.
Yeah.
And so, uh, with providing balance for your body, it involves not only focusing on one aspect of your lifestyle like nutrition, but it also involves taking care of your sleep,
Yeah.
or making sure that you have regular movement and exercise, and
Mm-hmm.
also even um, responding to stress in a way that helps you,
Yeah.
and taking care of the relationships with the people around you. All of these things are what impact your health, impact your cell health, impact your mitochondria,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because yeah, like at the end of the day, it's really up to us to take care. Like we only have this one body that we're
Mm,
given,
yeah.
and we might as well take care of it. And I think especially when we're younger, no, parang we don't think about that because it's working and it's healthy and we're kind of good. And then as we kind of get older, pag lumalabas na yung mga aches and pains, tsaka that's the only time that we kind of like reassess
Mm,
what's happening with our lifestyle and trying to look for ways like to stop the aches and pains. um
mhm.
you mentioned that part of kind of like feeding that mitochondria, like good things basically is having a very rich diet in antioxidants. What does that look like?
Okay, so first of all, the nutrients or the basic things that are required for processes in the mitochondria to you know go along are magnesium, calcium, selenium. There's a whole list. B vitamins, also your iron, copper, biotin. So all of these are things that are found in fruits and vegetables.
Mm.
Um,
So simple as that. It's just fruit and
yeah.
veg. Yeah.
Actually, if you think about the things that parang I listed down, these are things that you would find in a multivitamin. Parang, look at the back
Mhm.
of your multivitamin, it has all that. But when so some people would choose to supplement, diba? However, uh, it's always just best to get it from food. to get all these nutrients from food, because
Yeah.
every time there actually is this theory that every time you or that combination of nutrients in a certain food, they have a synergistic effect on the body that no supplement or no there or no other man-made combination can follow. So God just made, yeah, diba, God just made things amazing that way.
Yeah.
And so yeah, a diet that would be a diet to help support your cells would be something that, instead of doing research and seeing those specific nutrients in your food, you can look at the colors
Mm.
of your vegetables. So Dr. Sasa talked about this. Have a colorful diet. When you say colors, it's in colors of the rainbow, and you could make it your goal to have 1 to 2 servings of each color a day. That would be the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you can't,
Getting your 5 a day.
yes, get your 5 a day. But if you can't do that yet, then just work on, let's say, when you have a meal, make sure that you have 3 colors, 3 different colors in your meal. And
Mm.
once you're able to, do that consistently, add a fourth color, a fifth color.
Yeah. So it's basically like retraining the way you eat and retraining your palate just to make better choices, as opposed to, yeah, I think the Filipino plate is very white and very brown.
Yes, that's
So
true.
it's 2 colors lang.
Oh, rice and ulam.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I mean,
soy
unless you
sauce.
have chop suey, that's the only time it kind of gets kind of colorful. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that totally makes sense.
Oh, and
Um,
can I add pala,
yeah,
apart from, yes, agree with Doc Candy. So it's best to get majority from food, and then if you know that you lack, if you're not able to get to eat the healthiest diet, or if based lang on your lifestyle, if you're facing a lot of stress at work, you're not able to exercise, then you can consider supplementation. Another thing also is, I was focusing on fruits and vegetables, but meat is also important for the mitochondria. So meat contains a lot of carnitine, and carnitine is used to shuttle fat into your cells so that it can be burned. So
oh,
yeah, so there's also CoQ10 that's found in meats and nuts, and so it's important to round out your diet.
yeah.
Add a lot of fruits and vegetables, but make sure you have other foods from different food groups as well.
Mm.
And the focus shouldn't also just be on food, but also on water and air. So remember that in order for, diba, whenever we inhale, we're feeding our body oxygen, and
Yeah.
so um, one of the things that you could address. So a lot of people may have sleep apnea, for example. And these
Mm-mm.
are things na we don't usually notice until it's really bad na. So you can ask, no, or try to ask people at home if you snore, or if while you're sleeping, you stop breathing.
Yeah.
Um, because if you're chronically lacking oxygen, then in the long run, you can also damage your mitochondria. Even if you have a great diet, if
Mm-mm.
you lack oxygen,
Yeah.
ano pa yan. And also, second is water. So H2O, or water, is really used also in those biochemical processes. So make sure you have your 6 to 8 glasses a day,
Yeah.
or 8 to 10.
Preferably more. Yeah, exactly. Like 8 to 10 glasses. I love what Doc Candy says. She says it starts with buying the right things and not buying junk. I think kasi like
Yeah.
in the Filipino diet, like that's buying junk is like just the easiest go to for a lot of us. Kasi yun ang kinalakihan natin.
Mm-mm.
It's like, and we are part of our culture talaga is we like to make pika pika, and part of the pika
Yeah.
pika is a lot of junk food. Like I remember growing up with my cousins, having fruit was like a snack, or like
Mm.
it isn't really like I would consider, like right now, like I'd consider eating fruit part of my meal. But before it was like probably just a snack. I would share an apple with like a couple of other people, right? And that was it. Pero tig isa kaming bag ng clover chips or something like that. That tends to be the diet. So I'm like, it really is, in a lot of ways, just really re-educating yourself on what it is that you're feeding your body, and
Mm-mm.
what and I think like with your talk on like how whatever it is that we feed ourselves, whether it be food, air, water, etc., and just how it affects the, like the tiniest part of our bodies. I think it's really a huge wake up call. Like you were talking about sleep apnea and how, like, I have a brother who snores, right? And right now, like, I didn't really think of it as much. I just thought like, oh, he just snores like a truck driver, whatever. But yeah, now that I think about it, it could lead to something a lot worse if he doesn't really pay attention to it or take care of it.
Yes.
Okay, Doc Candy says, remember to breathe. That's why those who practice yoga and meditation regularly look so young. Yeah.
Because, one of the things that, so there's sleep apnea, and sleep apnea is already a medical condition. So for that, talaga you will need a CPAP or a machine to help you breathe at night. And that's a diagnosis now. But you know what? This isn't a diagnosis, but people have the habit of holding their breath when they're stressed, diba? Or you might not notice it, but when you're working or you're staring at the screen, you're typing, or you're in a meeting, you're not breathing na pala. And sometimes that's why at the end of the day, your head is so painful and you get these tension headaches.
Yeah.
And that's because, it could be from the lack of oxygen that you have. So, well, there are exercises that I teach my patients. There's like when you're working on a regular, when you're just working or you're washing the dishes or you're doing a regular task, and you suddenly become mindful of your breathing. You can do water breathing, which is inhaling for 4 seconds and then exhaling for another 4. So that's what I tell my patients. If suddenly, all of a sudden, you remember that you're breathing, then you do that. And
Yeah,
when
and
you're stressed,
it has so many benefits as well. Like it triggers the parasympathetic system, right? So you also you automatically relax.
Yes, it triggers your parasympathetic system. It lowers your cortisol, thereby lowering your blood pressure, your heart rate, and it calms you down.
Yeah. And that's just breathing. It's the cheapest thing you can do,
Yeah.
to keep yourself healthy. But it's not something that like a lot of people pay attention to, which is what I think why I love like Centra doctors, because like you guys really bring attention to that. Like it isn't just what's the symptom, it's like what's your lifestyle, what does that look like? And this is probably caused because of like maybe lack of deep breathing, and looking into having people look into breath work, having people look into yoga, meditation as part of like your healing, like your healing protocol. For me is pretty amazing. Oh, I love what Doc Sasa says. She says, "Wag na magbilang ng calories. Maraming hindi magaling sa math."
Yeah.
Ayoko magbilang. But yeah, I feel though, like, yeah, I mean, if you are eating, mostly, forgot who said this. I think it was Doc Sasa or Doc Candy. Like, if make sure that half your plate is at least is vegetables, right?
Yes.
And then 1/4 would be like your protein, and then the 1/4 would be your carbs. And I forgot what doctor said this, but instead of looking at meat as the meal, look at it like a condiment. So it just complements your vegetables, basically. Yeah.
And one thing also is, well, calories are important. So I think quantity is also something important to monitor. But the thing is, the quality is just as important, and quality comes first. Because if you're eating good quality foods, then you won't feel the need to eat more. For example,
Yeah.
the reason you could be feeling hungry and consuming more calories than you need is because your body, even though you're eating a lot of calories, they're not nutrient dense. So you have a lot of excess energy, but you still lack what you really need. Because of that, your body will have the response to still, want more. And that's what can fuel the excess intake of calories. But if you're eating a nutritious meal and your quality is good, then remember what you feel like when you're on elimination diet. You're not eating as much, but your energy is up, and you don't get cravings in between.
Actually, yeah, that's true.
Diba?
Yeah.
The quantity
Parang
will
like,
follow.
I think the cravings is more like sanay kasi akong kumain at this time and I'm not eating. So what's wrong? Parang my
Mm-mm.
brain is kind of like, ano nangyayari sa'yo? Kailangan mo kumain. Like, this is your time to eat. But like, I'm not doing that. So, but yeah, in terms of like cravings, actually feeling hungry, not really. So
Mm-mm.
it's interesting. Um, so can we talk about diets a little bit? Because for a lot of
Mm.
us, parang we come into Centro either like we want to lose weight, we want to work on ourselves, etc.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, we tend to put ourselves on re- long-term restrictive diets. How does that affect the powerhouse of our cell? Like, for example, if I were to go on keto, I mean, I do it for a month maybe, but I wouldn't do it, for an entire year. But a
Yeah.
lot of people kind of tend to do that. Or
Mm-mm.
if I do low carb, high protein,
Mm.
how does that affect the mitochondria in a certain way? Because with keto, like I didn't have that much vegetables, and it just left me kind of constipated. Umayat nga ako, constipated
Oh,
naman.
really? And that's so interesting. You remember what I was saying na your fats and your sugars all have the same
Yeah.
endpoint. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what keto does. Parang instead of using sugar to make your ATP, you use fats. And well, those diets, no, whenever we think of a diet for our patient, when you say kasi a diet, that means that you're going to have these restrictions or have these rules for a certain period of time. That's what a diet is, in order to fulfill a certain objective.
Yeah.
And so it depends on where you're at and what you need. So for some patients, like for example, you start with elimination diet. It's
Mm-hmm.
so that the objectives of the elimination diet would be to lower inflammation first in your gut, so that you can improve gut function, thereby improving all of those other things that come after. So
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the goal. And then second, after you have after you've achieved that objective or your goal, then you can reassess and see um, what next step you can take. When we talk about food plans, so the difference between a diet and a food plan is a diet is just meant to be there for a fixed period of time. When you
Mm-hmm.
go on a food plan, then that's a more sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have that on the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain diets that help the mitochondria. Like for example, keto is one. It's actually been studied to help those with epilepsy or those with seizures, and so it does have a direct effect on the mitochondria. But again, this isn't. It's not meant for everyone, and it's not
Yeah.
meant to be. Yeah, it should be just given for a certain period of time.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm. So 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 essentially it can go again, that's why we call it a restrictive diet. It's because it's only supposed to happen for a short period of time and not long term. Long term, you would want to eat whole foods, you want to eat more
Mm-mm.
fruit and vegetables. So basically,
Yes.
if you want to take care of your mitochondria, if you want to take care of your cells and look younger, just
Yes.
just live or choose to have to make healthier decisions and a better lifestyle, which honestly is easier said than done in this day and age.
Yeah.
uh,
Definitely.
Doc Sasa says, "Go, grow, glow are the way to go. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, white are the colors of the rainbow." Yes, for sure. So that's really the challenge, though. Is how can you eat all these colors in a
Hmm.
span of a day? And I think like
Yes.
once you can kind of turn that as like a game, for yourself, parang things can get interesting, and you can like expand your palate a lot more. And Doc
Yeah.
Candy says, and there's a right way to do keto. Hindi puro sisig at chicharon. I had a friend na yun ang ginawa niya. Like every lunch, he would eat like a pack of baliwag chicharon. And, like, yeah, like he was losing weight. Yeah. But oh my, like he had the worst BO because of that. I
Oh
feel.
my. But yes, I think Dr. Kat talked about this also. There's a right way to do it.
Yeah,
Like you have to look at the quality of the fats also that you put in.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be good fats. Parang, I think a lot kasi parang, oh, I'll do dirty keto just so it isn't as hard. And yeah, I kind of feel like people kind of shortchange themselves on the
Mm.
experience of going on the keto diet because they're
And it
doing
can
dirty.
work eh. Like it
Mm-mm.
can work, diba? It
Yeah,
will naman. But
exactly.
if you think about the long-term consequences or you keep doing it, eventually something's gonna give.
Yeah. So again, like you're not really feeding your mitochondria that well. You may look good on the outside, but on the inside, it could be a very different story.
Yeah.
So Dr. Rana, since we're talking about like like feeding our mitochondria, etc., what are some good like mitochondrial supporting nutrients that we can eat or take in order for us to look younger for longer, stay younger for longer?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, there's H2O, that's water, and oxygen. Those are the most basic things. And then,
Super simple.
yeah. And then nutrients are magnesium, calcium, selenium, thiamine, or the different B vitamins. So B2, B5, B6, B9, B12,
Mhm.
vitamin K, iron, copper, biotin, sorry, that's B7. Carnitine and CoQ10. Now, carnitine is used a lot, also CoQ10, because they're actually parts of um, the whole process that generates mitochondria, the ATP. Um, and these are things that you can get from meat. So it's not just your fruit, and also iron you get from meat. So
Yes.
yeah, those are nutrients that you can get. And also, again, to balance, it's important to reduce oxidative stress. So making
Mm,
sure that you decrease your toxin load, that's important. And then second is providing your body with antioxidants that will help neutralize those free radicals. So antioxidants are also found in fruits and vegetables in the different colors of your fruits and vegetables.
got it. So for what I'm basically hearing from you, like this is basically what I would get if I were to go into Central and get a holistic medical consult.
Yeah.
Like if I remember, like filling out, like like how stressed are you, and all the questions that these Central doctors would usually ask, which is like, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How are your
Mm.
energy levels, etc. So it's kind of amazing for me how that all really ties in
Mhm.
to what it is that you guys really do on a daily basis.
Mhm.
I used to think that like it was just all about like gut function and figuring that out, but it really kind of essentially goes into bioenergetics, which is how is this powerhouse of the cell fueling the rest of the body, and how well is it working for you.
Mhm.
And what I kind of like about this is like there is hope. So
Yeah.
because cells replenish themselves, just because you feel a certain way, like if you feel like fatigue and low energy today, it doesn't have to be that tomorrow. You just really need to
Yeah.
take care of yourself a little bit more, and you can get to that. And it could be something as simple as like doing, like I said, a 21-day elimination diet.
Yes, like I like what you said about there's hope for everyone. That's true, and that's what I think is so amazing about how God created our bodies. Now, if you
Mm,
feel so sick at one point, you can go back, or you can even be better, much better than you were before. And
yeah.
like what you said also, well, we were talking a lot about what's ideal, what the ideal diet is, or ideally this is how you breathe, or we're supposed to exercise regularly. But we I understand, like, as a doctor with my patients, I understand that not everyone is ready to take on all of these changes. And of course we can't like just wake up the next morning and then execute everything, diba? There is a process. And so for anyone who just wants to become healthier, then we're there to partner with you, journey alongside you, because we do understand also that it's about meeting you where you are.
Yeah.
And just doing a simple change, no matter what it is, counts already. And that's a win already. So you don't have to, jump into, okay, super healthy na.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the myth, no, na parang you like once you start a healthy diet, like you are super healthy 100% of the time. Like
Mm,
it really isn't like that. We're all human, and we all like our chips, we all like our chocolate. Like it's gonna happen, but at least
mm,
go back. You can
mm,
go back, and what I like about this talk is just the education that we get about how all these lifestyle factors really affect us on a cellular level. Like I didn't realize like how much my lifestyle and my food intake and like my activities impacted my health. But now that you've kind of explained it, that everything you do, even simply breathing and drinking water, affects us on such a cellular level, really makes me want to take a good look at, yeah, what am I drinking? Like big ba, or like do I have soda in the fridge? Do I have iced tea there? In terms of like breathing, a lot of the times they like, we want to go up to the mountains or like on the
yeah.
beach to like get away for the fresh
Mhm.
air. Fresh air nga, pero stressed ka pa din. So
Mm.
it doesn't really help as much. So yeah, I think this has been super interesting for me. I hope that this has been super interesting as well for all of you. Doc Ronna, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you or come in for a consult?
So you can find me at the Grove Center Holistico. I'm there Mondays and by appointment on Fridays.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want to talk to Dr. Ronna more about your powerhouse of your cells and how to make them better, how to look younger, how to just feel more energetic, she is your girl. And yeah, that's it for us for our wellness weekends. We'll see you again next Sunday. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you, Kathy. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Ronna.